Okay, today we're going to look at synthetic division. But first thing I had you do was to do the warm-up using long division, which you will still need to know how to do this. What are those 4 steps that we talked about when doing long division?
Oh, I got it, Coach. No, call me.
Divide, multiply, subtract, drop down.
Bring down.
Okay? So, going through this one, what is the only thing that I'm going to divide by on this problem? X. Okay, it's the first term of the divisor. So the first thing I'm going to do is 3x cubed divided by x, which is what? Okay. Where am I going to put that up here? Above the 17x squared. I'm then going to do what? Multiply. Okay, and if you want to think of distribution, that might be a little bit better. Distribute that to my divisor. So I get 3x cubed plus 15x squared. The minus is going to cancel that. So what am I going to get right there?
2x squared.
2x squared. I drop down my next term. And then I do the whole process over again. So 2x squared, I'll go through this a little bit quicker. Divided by x is 2x. 2x times x plus 5. I subtract. And then I go through it all one more time. And that cancels. Okay, so make sure you know how to do that process. Now, we're going to talk about this in a minute. We briefly talked about it last class. Is x plus 5, I'll do it up here. Is x plus 5 a factor of my dividend? Yes or no?
No.
Yes. And Alex, why is it a factor? Somebody tell me why x plus 5 is a factor. Because it divided evenly, or there is no remainder. Okay? So, looking at synthetic division. Okay, it is a shorthand version of doing long division. There are 2 requirements. So, you can't do this for every problem. Okay? But whenever you've done a few of these, I don't want to say completely guarantee that you'll prefer it, but you most likely will. Okay, it is new. Obviously, you've probably never seen anything like that, but it is a lot easier and a lot quicker. Okay?
Wait, so it's the same?
So, yes. You get the same answer doing this as you would long division. Now, the only difference in this is, one, your divisor must be a linear factor, and the coefficient must be 1. Okay, so whatever you're dividing by, up there it was x plus 5, it's got to be like that, x plus or minus a number. Okay, it can't be x squared something, it can't be 3x plus 4 or 2x minus 7, whatever. It's x plus or minus a number. Okay? So I'm going to do my best to explain it using this little diagram. Then I think it might make almost more sense with the example, but we'll talk about a few things here. So the first thing you're going to do is you'll set that right there up. Okay? And then the A, B, C, and D, that is just the coefficients from your dividend. Okay? This value out here is going to come from your divisor, and it is going to be opposite the sign. If it's x plus 3, it'll be negative 3 out there. If it's x minus 8, it'll be positive 8 out there. After that, You've got it all set up. The very first thing you're going to do is you're going to drop that first term down. A lot of people will mess this up and they'll try to do something before they actually bring it down. After that, all you're going to do is multiply and then add or subtract. Okay, you're going to do k times, or that value times a. You're going to put that there, and then you'll add or subtract. You're going to do k times that, put the answer there, add or subtract. Okay, and so on. And then that last number, that will be your remainder if you have one. Okay, so that's just kind of the process of how it all sets up. So, and let's actually walk through an example so you can see it. So this is this exact same problem we just did in the warm-up. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coefficients of all of those, of all the terms in the dividend, and I'm going to write them right there. And then my divisor, Sutton, I'm going to, it's x plus 5, so you can think about solving for the solution whenever you have that. Okay, if it's x plus 5, you set it equal to 0, and that's going to be negative 5. Alright, so now let's walk through this. Very first thing you do, what do I say?
Drop down the 8.
Okay, and so on that, this one right here, it's the 3. So I'm going to drop down that 3. Now, negative 5 times 3 is what? Negative 15. 17 minus 15 is what?
2.
Negative 5 times 2 is what? 6 minus 10 is what? Negative 4. Negative 5 times negative 4 is what? Positive 20. And negative 20 plus 20 is 0. Okay? A lot of arrows. If you're following me, that's just the process. Multiply, put your answer there, add or subtract. Multiply, put your answer there, add or subtract. Multiply, put your answer there, add or subtract. Alright. A lot of people struggle. They can do this part. It's writing the actual answer. These are the coefficients of your answer. It's writing the actual answer that some people struggle with. If I've got 3 terms, this polynomial is going to have a degree of what?
X cubed.
Nope. X squared. Because you're going to have that one, the number at the end that does not have variable on it. Okay, and so that would be your quotient. A couple issues that came up last class. A couple issues that came up last class is, okay, well, do I add or subtract? I don't know what to do. It's all dependent on whether it's positive or negative. This was negative 15, so we subtracted. This was negative 10, so we subtracted. This was positive 20, so we added. It's just if it's positive, you add. If it's negative, you subtract. Okay, so let's go to the back. We'll do a couple more together, and then I'll have you do it. So, on this, listen. Shh. What number is going to go out to the left of this thing? Positive 3. And then I'm going to list my coefficients in here. After I do that, Alan, what's the first thing I'm going to do?
You would drop down the A value, the first number.
Yes. Thanks, Alan. Your voice sure has changed over the weekend. Okay, going to drop down the 2. Ellie, what would I do then?
Multiply.
What by what?
Times 2.
Okay. 3 times 2 is 6. Liv, after that? which is?
3.
Okay. Garrett, after that
3 times 3.
is?
9.
And then what?
And then 9 plus 9. Negative 9 plus 9.
Is?
0.
Okay. So, Lyndon, what is my quotient, or what's my answer here?
I think it's 2x plus 3.
It is 2x plus 3. That's excellent.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to go down to this top left box. I'm going to do this one with you, then I'm going to let you do the other 3. What do you notice about this one?
There's no x squared and x.
You're missing an x squared and an x term. Okay, so just like long division, that is one rule that comes over. So you need to put a 0x squared, a 0x in your synthetic box. If you have to, I've had some people do this. Thank you, ma'am. As they're reading it, whenever they notice that it's missing a term, they'll write that out. And that way they know how to fill it all in. What is going to go out to the left? Out here. Negative 1.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Alright, so the first thing I need to do, Preston, is what?
Bring the 1 down.
Alright, I'm going to bring that down. And I'm going to go through this one kind of quick so you have time to work on the others. After that, negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And that is 0. And so I end up with x squared minus x plus 1. There, that's how you would write the answer to that one. So let's go. So on this next page, okay, this is going to be practice going through that. Working synthetic. I would highly recommend that you work through some of those before you show up next class and realize that you have a quiz. Okay, right now I want you to go to this page right here where it says remainder and factor theorem. So the remainder and the factor theorem, two different theorems, and really it's, as you work through it, it's the same process. It's just that whenever you get 0, it's the factor theorem. Whenever you get anything other than 0, it's the remainder. Okay? So, one way that you can do this, I'm going to show you two different ways. And if you notice on this, it's not asking us, well, I'll read through the definition real quick. It says you can use the remainder theorem to determine if a linear expression is a factor of a polynomial. So at the beginning, I asked you, was that a factor of yes? And you said yes, it was, because it divided evenly or there was no remainder. Okay, then it says when a polynomial is divided by a linear polynomial, the remainder of that division will be equivalent to f of c. All right, and I'll define that whenever we get into a few examples. So, one way you can do this is exactly how we just did all those problems. Okay, I can sit here and I can do synthetic. And I'm going to and make sure you know, if you want to rewrite that, that should be 2x cubed, not 2 cubed. So you just follow along with me on this. This is just going through that exact same process we just did. So I would drop the 3. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. Negative 12 plus 8 is negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. 1 plus 8 is 9. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. So my remainder would be negative 28. So doing this, all these problems are asking for is the remainder. Okay, so if you did it this way, you would do all that just for this number. You wouldn't give me the actual quotient, you would just give me the remainder. Alright, so there's another way to do this. I think it's a little more simple. And what I want you to do is I want you to, in your calculator, put the dividend into y1 and put the divisor into y2. Once you've done that, I want you to go to the table. Actually, we're going to do this a little different. I just want you to put this into y1, and then you're going to go to the table, and I want you to tell me what the y value is whenever x is negative 2. What y value did you have? Whenever the x value is negative 2, what was the y value? 68. They may get something different. Negative 28. Okay. So you should have gotten negative 28 whenever you looked for whenever x was negative 2. Somebody tell me, why did I pick negative 2?
Because x plus 2 is 2.
Because that's what this is going to give me. Okay, this is going to tell you which x value to look at in that equation. Okay, so because this gave me a number, and what that is doing is that is plugging negative 2 into this equation, and it's telling me that is negative 28. So is x plus 2 a factor of that dividend?
No.
No. If this was 0, yes, it's a factor. If it's anything but 0, no, it's not a factor. Okay, so hopefully, and you'll see the amount of time this is going to save you, especially on number 2, because if you were to go to number 2 and do synthetic, even though it is a shortened version of long, you would still have to do all of those placeholders. But now instead, you can put y cubed without the placeholders plus 64 into y1. You're going to go to the table, and what x value are you going to look for?
4.
4 because of this right here. Okay, because the x minus 4. So I want you to do those next 3 and figure out what the remainder is, if there is a remainder, and write that on the right side of the page.
My calculator's doing. It's
I didn't get the same answer when I solved it as I put it in
So, a couple ways you can use this. One, let's say that you're solving a problem, you're doing the division, and you get some crazy remainder, some really large number, and you think you did it wrong. Instead of going back and going through it all, you can do the or the remainder theorem. Okay, plug it in, and maybe you do long division. You got 128, and you think, I did it wrong. You can check it by doing this pretty easily. Okay. Now, looking up here, the process for the factor theorem and the remainder theorem are the exact same thing. This is the remainder theorem. Sorry, this is the factor theorem. This is the remainder theorem, but it's the same process. The answer tells you kind of which one you're dealing with. Okay? And so, make sure that you know, whenever you're asked for the remainder, and even though I wrote that right there, I wasn't saying you had to do that. Okay? Doing it in the table, that replaces that process. Now, come quiz or test time, whenever you have one of these problems, and it says, okay, what's the remainder? Show the work. Just because you're doing it in the calculator doesn't mean you can't tell me how you did it. All right, put y1 right out the equation, and then write me just a little 1-point table like that right there. That tells me that you knew what you were looking at because you got the 4 there. Okay, and you can show me that instead of just putting 128 on there. So you got that last one, it was 0, so it's x plus 4. Is that a factor of x cubed plus 64? Yes, and that's what the first question back here is asking about. So you can put yes, because there is no remainder. Now, if you look up here, this is most likely what these kind of questions are going to look like. It's not going to ask you for the remainder necessarily. It might. But it's probably going to say, is this a factor of this? And so you do the factor remainder theorem. If it comes out to 0, yes, it's a factor. If it comes out to a number other than 0, no, it's not a factor. Okay? Now, I want to show you something. We're going to do number 6 together. So I want you to put that the long dividend into y equals for me. So go ahead and do that. Alright, so now that we have that in, go to your table, and what x value am I going to look for on my table?
-3.
No.
1.
No. Look. Do what?
-1.5.
-1.5. Okay, because the linear factor is 2x plus 3. So you would set that equal to 0, subtract 3, and divide by 2. So now look up and down your table for -1.5. It's not there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to, in the calculator, give the calculator an x value, okay, an independent value, and it's going to tell you what the dependent or the y value is. All right, so hit second window, That's going to take you into the table setup menu. Down there at the bottom where it says independent auto. It's not the very bottom, it's a one up from the last one. Highlight ask and hit enter. And then go back to your table. Whenever you go back to your table, it should be completely blank. Alright, and so now you can type in whatever value you want. So negative 1.5. And whenever you do that, what is the y value?
0.
So is 2x plus 3 a factor of that? Yes. So using this in the calculator, where this could be helpful is especially on these kind of questions right here at the very bottom. Because I'm giving you one dividend, but I'm giving, and I think there's another one below D, 5 different factors. So instead of doing synthetic division, or instead of putting this into y1 and still having to search through a big table of numbers, instead, if you use this ask option, you can go in and you can just type in negative 4/3 and see what it gives you. And then you can type in negative 1/2 and see what it gives you, and so on. And you can get the list of just the y values you need. You don't need to look at the whole table. You just need the y values that match up with these x values. And if it's 0, then that is a factor. If it's not 0, then it's not a factor. Okay? Questions on any of this stuff?